And now we have Jaguar Heart. What a fantastic name. We're going to be talking about masculinity, suicide. Jaguar is going to be talking about how to become useful with the pathway to authenticity and purpose. Are we ready to give open hearts and open minds for this wonderful talk? If we are, show some love for Jaguar Heart with a nice round of applause. Thank you.
How are you all doing? Good, good. There were so many ways that I looked to bring this talk to you guys because it's such an important topic at the moment, especially around masculinity. It's such a charged subject. There's a lot of men that are confused about it. There's a lot of women that are confused about it as well. And there's a lot of, I would say, social narratives that are pushing stuff that is the antithesis to what we traditionally understand as masculine. And I thought, how am I going to bring this in a way that's palatable, understanding? I can sometimes be a little bit controversial, but what I find really surprising is the fact that traditional traits which have been in every culture, every generation, every era throughout history is now somewhat controversial. Can everyone hear me properly? Good. Lift it up a bit. Is that better? Cool. Thank you. So in Australia, one man will kill himself every 3.6 hours, and globally, one man every single minute. So by the time I finish this, give or take 40 to 50 men will have killed themselves. It's a pretty big statistic, and it's one of the highest ever in history, and we have to ask why. Why is this happening? What is going on that is causing this? Now, depending on where you look and which publication, there's going to be differences of what they believe is happening. I can only tell you from what I experience every day speaking to men. I'm not sure if everyone here follows me on Instagram, but I get hammered pretty hard in the social media sphere. I get death threats pretty regularly. I get told to kill myself because I stand for traditional masculinity. The funny thing with that is that it's usually coming from people that are telling men to act and operate more like a traditional feminine woman that are telling me to do that. Now, it doesn't really land on me so much. It was a little bit more difficult in the start when I would have threats like that would come through. But it's typically what I see. The social narrative is telling men to operate more like malfunctioning women. Now, it's not a diss towards women at all. I think women are fantastic. I love women. My partner's here in the crowd. But I think what it is, it's teaching men and boys to be something that inherently that their instincts are working against. And it's saying, this isn't right. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't seem right. I don't think it's right. My instincts, my biology and my instincts are arguing with psychology and intellect. Biology and instinct will always win. It doesn't matter which way we strip it, which way we look at it. Biology and instinct will always override psychology and intellect. Psychology and intellect can be easily manipulated. Biology and instinct cannot. Right, so this is where we split these into two. So relative to suicide, I touched on it a little bit yesterday in another talk that I did. One of the things that we're seeing in society is a lot of isolation. Now, isolation can sort of be broken into two parts. There's isolation with distraction. This is the problem, where we're on these things too much. These create a huge amount of disconnection. If I didn't need Instagram for work, I probably would barely be on this thing. You know, my partner and I, we try to put our phones down at 7 o'clock at night. We don't always sort of get that done because it's usually my fault that it doesn't get done. These are the disconnection machine. So if you get a young man that is confused about who he is, he doesn't know what he's doing, he doesn't know where he's going, he doesn't have good male role models because they've been isolated, they're now distracted as well on the phone too. He doesn't know who to turn to because a lot of men now are scared to speak up about what represents masculinity. If we don't toe the line, we're automatically associated and told we're toxic, misogynistic, we should end ourselves, we're useless, we're not needed, and we're worthless. Every single turn. It's been brought into schools now that young boys automatically should be told that they need to be worked out so they don't become a domestic violence abuser. This is where we're at. I've got my finger pretty close on the pulse with this too. So you think about, let's look at abandonment as an example. You know, let's say you get left at soccer training, dad or mum forgets to pick you up at 4:30 in the afternoon, and by 6 p.m. they've forgotten about you. That will have an effect on you for the rest of your life. I remember my mum made me go to school when I was in year 1 and it was my second day. My dad had just gone to prison and I lost it. And she forced me to go to school. And I remember I was hyperventilating in class because I was so distraught that I didn't know where my dad was. My mum was just like, shut up and go to school. And then the teacher told me to shut up. That still stays with me. That's just one thing. That was just a normal kid being scared to go to school on his first or second day. Think about when you're going into a classroom as a 10-year-old, 9-year-old, 11-year-old boy, told that you're a rapist, excuse the word, I know it's vulgar, but told that you're going to be a domestic violence abuser, told that you're toxic, told that you're misogynistic. You think about the impact that's going to have downstream generationally. How's a boy going to feel about himself? The very foundation of what he expresses in the world is told that it's wrong and that it's toxic. I was called out by someone, which I don't want to mention her name just because I don't want to give her the clout. I said in one of my reels that one of the responsibilities of the masculine is to help the woman with reduction of choice, not because it's controlling, but because it's to help her, because women are expected to take on everything these days. And I get DMs every single day about women saying they're tired, they're picking up after men all the time at home and everything. And she took one thing that I said, and then which was it's about reduction of choice, and then called that intensely misogynistic. That's just lies and manipulation. This is what I come up against every day, which is selection bias. Now, if you get someone with a thinner skin, it can affect them. I got pretty upset about it. Well, I got pissed off actually, I didn't get upset. Because she willfully lied to her echo chamber to make me look like that and called me intensely misogynistic because of it. When literally the next sentence was to actually help women, to help our women, to take some of the responsibility off them, because men are acting like boys, expecting women to be their mothers instead of their wives. This is where it's going. So it's a rough landscape out there where social media allows people like that to manipulate the message so easily with no recourse. I always say it's very easy to win an argument when you're the only one yapping, which is what I attributed to this woman saying that. So, to get down to more of the point, suicide, okay? Men need to understand who they are at the deepest level. We've had rites of passage in almost every tribe for men and women throughout time, throughout history. We don't have that anymore. It's gone. So now the media is trying to portray who we're supposed to be to make men more compliant, more submissive, more easy to deal with. So you tell a young boy to sit in a classroom, to put his hand up, to not move around. We've got so much energy as little boys. I remember when I was growing up as a young kid, like I'd go to school all day and then I'd go out and skateboard for 6 hours at night because I had so much energy. We're not harnessing masculinity or young boys' biology in a way that is helpful for them. It is harmful, and then defining them by the environment that we put them in and telling them that they should be anything other than who they are. This is a fractured aspect of our society around our young boys. When my partner and I have children, because we're in preconception care at the moment, we're going to homeschool. And when the boy reaches 7, if it's a boy that comes through, he's going to seek me to raise him more so than it will with my partner, because he'll seek out masculine programming. This is just biology. So when we're in these societies that are telling us that boys are toxic, they start to feel isolated and they start to adapt. Then what happens, they're going to start to develop feelings of resentment towards themselves, and generally because they're not taught how to deal about that, they start to lash out in a form of aggression. Anger and aggression is a boundary setter. It says, stay away from me. This is what happens. So as that accumulates over time in Ayurveda, I'm sure everyone's probably familiar with Ayurveda here, the first stage of disease is accumulation. We have a disease in our society through material excess of accumulation. It's the first stage of disease. When you start to tell people, or boys more so, that they're toxic growing up, that's going to accumulate. And the second stage of disease is aggravation. And you know what happens there. We start to develop mechanisms to get it out that are imbalanced against how we should be allowed to do it through sports and, physical activity. Boys do things differently to girls, and I think that we need to remember to honour that. So as they grow up, there almost becomes this resentment. And there was a story that I was reading earlier about a man in the Blue Mountains, Adam Bloom, I think his name is. He was growing up in school. He was diagnosed with ADD or ADHD. He was heavily bullied, told that he was useless and worthless. I think he had testicular cancer or an accident, so one of them had to be removed. That got out, and he was heavily bullied. When he was 22, his boss said something to him, and he went to a cliff to jump off. In the moment he was about to, he heard his grandmother's voice say, "Call your friend." It didn't list the friend in the article that I read about him. And so he called his friend, and his friend spoke him through it, so he had someone to reach out to. The more isolated boys are, and men are these days especially, the less people they feel they can go to for help. Now, one of the things that's very important is this gentleman, Adam, then turned that into purpose. He's become a rescue firefighter and runs a podcast which deals with mental health issues and people that have overcome the same things that he did. But if we go back to school, he was bullied by boys and girls, and he was heavily bullied about his physical anatomy where there was some sort of deficiency. So as a man, how would he have felt? Less than, worthless, not needed, not wanted. These are really powerful statements, and I think bullying is the social media landscape for bullying. I could do a whole talk on that because it's atrocious at the moment. There's no recourse for it whatsoever. If you were to write some of the stuff that's been written about me in a newspaper, I could sue for defamation. On social media, there's absolutely no recourse, which I really think if we were to do that, we'd be pushing closer towards censorship, and then it's a whole other thing that we have to go down. But if you look at it from a vulnerable child whose psychology is open to interpretation and told that they're useless, worthless, not needed, that's going to have an effect when he moves into his early 20s, where he's having difficulty stepping out into the world after being 18 with no solid male role models, no initiations, no rites of passage. He's going to do one of two things. What Adam did, which is an attempt to kill himself, or find pseudo-initiations through gangs, drugs, jail, difficult things. This is what happens when it's not done in the right way. Now, suicide itself, in my opinion, represents an extremely powerful and philosophical time in life. When you can look at it through a clear lens, in the absence of the pain that comes with it, it's where we start to question our existence. This is why it happens when we're 15, 16, it starts to spike up, early 20s, and then up until 25 to 44, that's the leading cause of death in males, suicide. And the reason why is we go through these times in life where we say, who am I? What am I doing here? What's my purpose? These are really important questions. We think about when we're children, one of the strongest ways to help a young boy is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Now, we don't ask that anymore. All we do is just try to honor every single feeling, and then what we do is we get guided by feelings all the time, and then we expect the world to change for our feelings. That's not reality. It's just not. There's a space for it in the right environment where it's appropriate, but not for every single part of us that it's manifested in. And so people don't really ask to a young boy. This is usually the father to the child. What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? So what happens is, as we get older, these elements and these parts of us want to die off. So depression is the final stage of the grieving process. At around 15 or 16, if the boy hasn't individuated from his mother, he'll start to do it at 15 or 16. Then if he doesn't do it at 15 or 16, what's going to happen is he'll usually attract in a woman that will leave him later on to make sure he starts the individuation initiation process to break free from immature boy psychology. This is where you'll see a lot of relationships for men. They will end. He will meet someone that's usually typically like his mother, or maybe his father, but it's usually the mother. And what will happen is the woman will leave him. He'll be heartbroken. His family's gone. He might lose money at the time, or any sort of major loss that happens is the initiatory process into wholeness. This is why this happens. I had a situation in a previous relationship where she left him. The father had also died early on. The mother blamed the father for leaving the family. I came in, I met this woman, we got together. He then blamed another man for splitting his family up because he hadn't processed the grief from his father dying when he was 19 and hadn't individuated from the mother. This is why this process happened around this. Life will make you go through it. Life will initiate you. There is no way to avoid moving as a man into mature masculine psychology. It will either be through grief and death, breakup, loss, or attempted suicide. Now, all of these situations are wrapped up from the same programming. And so if we look at grieving through these difficult times, we're looking at, the death of ourselves. This is what happens when we start to feel like times are over. I was just having a chat with a friend outside, and there were multiple men in one group that ended up taking their own life. And they were all holding on to a part of their identity. And I'll get into this in a sec. What drives this is loneliness. Loneliness is an epidemic at the moment. But loneliness, in my opinion, doesn't really exist. Loneliness to me is a void. It's a void internally that we're experiencing. The void internally is an absence of something. What is it the absence of? It's the absence of authenticity. Authenticity, when it shines through, is operating in integrity. Integrity comes from the root word wholeness, WHOLENESS. To be an integer as well is a whole number. A fraction is a part of a number. So when you're out of integrity, you're out of wholeness. When you feel loneliness there, how could we be lonely? There's, 8 billion people on the planet? There's people everywhere. How could we be lonely? It's a felt experience of a void within us. When that void is there, we feel empty, we feel purposeless, we feel directionless. And it's extremely important for a man to have a sense of purpose to fill him up. Now, back in the 70s, when women went into the workforce, that's where suicide started to spike. Because the need for a man to have something to take care of started to be taken away. Now, this is not about women going to the workforce or rights or anything. It's just a statistical correlation to that. And since then, what's the main message directed at men besides toxic and misogynistic? We're not needed. We're not needed. I hear it every day. We're not needed. And that's fine. Women can go into the workforce. That's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I advocate for that. I actually don't know why women didn't have the same rights as men anyway from the start. I think it's pretty ridiculous. But this doesn't change the notion of not being needed as a man. And part of our biology is to protect and provide. So, there's this part of us that becomes isolated internally, that we become disconnected from. We exile it. We then, with the help of the ego, think that this is who we are as a whole. We move into isolation because we've exiled a part of us that needs to be integrated, and then we exile ourselves from the whole, from community. And why would we want to be showing up when at every turn we're told we're toxic or misogynistic or we're just evil at the deepest level? It's awful to hear. The things that I read every day, the things that get directed at me are absolutely abhorrent. There's almost no compassion in these people that direct stuff at me. Now, there's a part of us after it's been exiled that wants to be included as well. And in order for it to be included, it needs to die. Now that sounds paradoxical, but the ego will send messages. So if everyone sits there and I say, don't think about a red car, you'll start thinking about a red car. Now, the ego will send messages to our conscious mind about the part of us that feels worthless or useless. So that part of us that feels worthless or useless doesn't have any worth, and no one wants it, and no one wants to know about it. But that's the part of us that's actually no longer needed. The part of us that is not needed is the part of us that believes that it's not needed. However, the ego tricks us and plays this game because we start to misidentify with that part of us. It will literally send messages up into the brain, into the mind, for us to start to look at this. So what needs to happen is a reversal of external locus of control, which is the world would be better off without me. It's not actually saying that. It's that my world would be better off with this part of me that thinks the world would be better off without me. This is the part of us that needs to die. This is the part of us that needs to let go of. Because just by virtue of our own existence, you're needed. You're here for a reason. You're here for a reason. So this part of us needs to die. And when I mentioned this yesterday, I remember for about 2 years, I was trying to figure out which program it was that contained the adaptation of suicide. And I couldn't figure it out, and it was something that I was obsessed with. So when I look at a concept, I write the concept in the middle of a page and write every word around it that's associated with it, which is a synonym, then go the opposite, which is an antonym. And I couldn't get it with suicide. And I thought the program was, maybe I don't want to die, and then it sends up an image of not wanting to die, but then I want to die. I couldn't get it. And then, because there's subconscious programming in all of us, and when I was driving away, it was a rainy night, and it was like a lightning bolt hit my car, and it went off in my mind, and I said, it's not one program. It's every program that wants to die. And it's asking to die. But we just misconstrue that with thinking that we need to end our life. And when you see this, the people that I've worked with, the men that I've worked with, when we go through this, it shifts. Because they're like, a part of me wants to die, but I just don't have to end my life. And this is the part of us which is the immature boy psychology, which is asking to die off. It's very simple once you see it through these different stages. And every single time one of these stages hits, it's crisis. And crisis always precedes evolution. Always. Everyone here will have been through something difficult in life where crisis was the precursor to a major transformation of evolution. And this is how life works. Birth, evolution, destruction. Birth, evolution, destruction. It just keeps cycling. Nothing stays the same. The good thing is nothing lasts forever. The bad thing is nothing lasts forever. And this is the process that we run through. So in this realm, we actually experience 2 types of death. There's the physical, which is the body. It's pretty obvious. And there's the personal, which is the identity. The problem is we get these 2 mixed up. So we get caught up in this and we confuse the physical death because our ego will convince us that this is what's happening, that it needs to die. And the ego will take the host with it a lot of the time in order to be right. The ego just loves to be right. So the personal encompasses psychological, intellectual, mental, emotional, which encompasses the identity. You know, we think about holding on. And you think about, if I asked everyone here to pick up a 200 kilo deadlift and hold on to it for 10 minutes, how much strength, pressure, and tension would that require to hold on for 10 minutes? Everything you've got. I couldn't do it. But then when let's say you got there to the 10 minutes, and I said, all right, you can let it go. How much strength, pressure, and tension would it require to let go? Not much. So what's hard, holding on or letting go? The holding on is the thing that's difficult. And the tension and resistance and conflict increases until we're forced to let go of it. I went through this myself a couple of years ago where I was going through this process and I thought I was dying every single day. I had pressure in my head. I would get what's called brain zaps. So I'd lie down at night and my head feels like it was like it was being electrocuted. And then I couldn't sleep and my heart enlarged. And I had insomnia for 5 months. And I couldn't really do much except just work and get on with it. And every single day I thought that I was going to die. And I was dying. I just confused the physical with the psychological. And that's where all this stuff came through for me. So physically, you're born on whatever day. And so you go, I'm born in 1980 on this day, and I'm a Libran and whatever star sign. So we start to identify with the things and the times that we came in. And the personal is formed and born through different stages, and we get trapped in time, psychological time. So an example of that is, let's say a child pulls a dog's tail, they're 5 years old, the dog turns around and bites the human on the hand. For many years later, that child is going to think that the world isn't safe or that there's a threat every time the dog turns around. So she gets stuck in psychological time. And these events keep replaying it until we let it go. Now, the next aspect is having to, and this is the big one, is having to manipulate ourselves in the form of expression or lack thereof in order to fit in. Who here has manipulated themselves in order to fit in? We do it every single day, right? How you doing? Yeah, I'm good. I'm not fucking good. I might be great. I'm not good. But we do it every single day in order to fit in. The mask that we wear, sometimes it becomes impossible to differentiate between the mask and who we truly are. And so we do this in order to fit in, which is then driven by a program of I'm not something. There's something there. I'm not wanted. I'm not loved. I'm not safe. I'm not going to be okay. Whatever it is going to start to come up, and you project this persona onto the world to hide this part of us, which is false. This inspires a suppression and a death of the false self. This is what it inspires. This forms dysfunction. Dysfunction informs separation. Separation informs isolation. Isolation breeds desperation. This is the chain that it goes down. And then in the inability to be with the desperation, we move into distraction. And so then the male goes online, and then every single turn that we see, we're told we're toxic or we're hated on some level. It's a very, very vicious cycle. This is the part, though, however, when we get pushed into the pain, where we can actually, when we know the process, is learn to die. But we just die to the idea of who we think we are, or more importantly, who we're told we're not. And this happens in childhood, it happens in society, because it's the death of the false, immature masculine self that must die in order for the true spiritual solar masculine to be born. So we have programs and prisons that keep this well guarded. And the ego is the one that keeps it guarded because the ego is very, very fragile. Evidence for the fragility of the ego is road rage. And usually road rage is predicated on something that didn't even happen. It's just someone drives over into your lane, doesn't see you, doesn't consider you, just like in childhood, and this person didn't do something to acknowledge me, and they cut off, and then an argument starts. Think about, and who here gets road rage? I mean, I've gotten it before, but you think about that from a point of fragility. It's an inability to be with life and what's going on. It's something that didn't even happen. This is the part of us that we need to start to remove, this reactive, fragile self. So as a result of this, the death of this self that occurs is required by splitting or individuating from the mother as represented by boy psychology. We must, as men, split from the mother. We cannot move. This doesn't mean exiling the mother. It just means psychologically splitting by becoming opposite to her. Women do this. Women can do this too. It's a very easy process. All you got to do is a really nice, lovely process of writing down 3 things you really don't like about your mother and see where they're in you. Nice and easy. And so what you do is you do that, and then you start to become opposite to the 3 traits that you've taken on like her. This is the start of the differentiation process, which leads to the individuation process. Individuation is to become undivided. Differentiated is to become different from the mother. This is part of the false self that's been inherited, of which the true self is lying underneath waiting to be born. So as a result, when we don't do this, you become dependent on this cultural devouring mother, and splitting from this leaves us in a constant state of guilt and shame and obligation. So where I say cultural devouring mother, the devouring mother, is everyone familiar with that term, devouring mother? No? So devouring mother is a mother that will not allow the child's development to happen independent of her. She will not let the child go. She smothers their potential. She smothers their freedom. And this is where you'll get helicopter parenting a lot. Like, the mother will not let the child be separate from her. She sees the child as an extension of her, not separate from her. Super important. This is why rites of passage happen, and the men would take the boys away, and the mothers would be complicit in that. And so in society, we're told that healthy masculinity and real masculinity is being willing to cry, being ruled by your emotions, being vulnerable all the time. These are sort of stereotypical feminine traits that Harvard did a long-term study on. So in this, our society is telling men that the only way to healthy masculinity is to be stereotypically feminine. That's gaslighting. That's not true, right? There's beautiful traits that women bring and amazing traits that men bring. Now, what happens is the mother, which is the devouring mother, devours the potential of the man. So now, when that happens, what we do is we double down in society and have developed a cultural devouring mother where society is telling men that the only way that they can be healthy is to be feminine. This is so, it's like it's a double down, and also the splitting of the family unit too, where the fathers have less and less involvement. This is another way to isolate the rites of passage so men don't actually mature into mature masculine psychology. What will happen at the precipice of this, when the programming starts to die, this is where they'll start to feel suicidal. This is where they'll start to feel like they want to die. And when I talk about the cultural devouring mother, it's very, very, very well hidden under the idea that the masculinity is somehow outdated. Like, they've outdated nature. Society is just not in harmony with the masculine biological imperative or the male biological imperative. It's not that masculinity is outdated, just like femininity is not outdated. Can you imagine if I was up here saying, okay, all the ladies in here, you're outdated. Time for a software update. Now you got to act like men, which that's part of the independent boss babe culture. It's inverted and switched either way. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's the way you want to live, I support that. Go for it. I'm just saying that biological imperative needs to be in harmony with psychological software. Biological hardware needs to be in harmony with psychological software. These two run in tandem, and they've been developed by nature for a reason. When these are not in harmony anymore, the elements will start to come up psychologically and ask you to let that part of you go in the form of feeling like you want to die. This is the crisis that will happen. If it's not a breakup or a divorce, it'll be sickness, serious sickness, or some sort of major financial loss for a man. This is the way that it works. This then leaves us, if we don't split from this, and life will do it for you. You know, you can sit here and listen to me and not agree with me. That's okay. Just go and look at the pattern of where this has happened for other people in your life. You'll find the correlations. Like, it's there. And so what happens is when we don't do it, it leaves us without a sense of purpose, and it leaves us without something to work towards as a man. Men need things to work towards. We don't process problems in the same way as women. Talking about our problems actually doesn't really get us anywhere. We need movement, and we need to fix things together. Men fixing problems together, I always say women collaborate, so they get together to fix. Men cooperate shoulder to shoulder. This is why we went to war together. We need a bigger task to go and fight and find, and the war of our time is not out there on the shores of anywhere else. I don't want to say country names due to the current political landscape. The war is internally. This is the war of our times as men, is to see what is devouring our masculine potential and to take the fight to say no and to stand against it. This is what we work towards. This is the task of our times, not for just ourselves, but to create better blueprints for our sons so they become better fathers and better husbands. Because we are failing at the moment as men. We're expecting women to be our mothers, we're acting like children, and we're becoming more compliant, more submissive, and quite simply weaker as men than what we used to do. Now words and clapping are microaggressions that we have to make space for. Respectfully, I think that's fucking bullshit. I think it's ridiculous. And I get pretty firm on this around masculinity because this is what I went through. I had a devouring mother. I know what that's like for a mother to try to devour my potential. On the other side of that, she was also my greatest gift because she was my sensei. She was the most impactful person in my life because I now get to do this work and stop men going down the path that I did, which was I ended up in gangs and jail and womanizing and thinking that I could fill the void internally by mass accumulation of material assets. That was only the amount of material assets I accumulated was directly correlated to the size of the void that I felt within that I thought I could buy my way out of. And then I got to 31, 32 as a multimillionaire and went, okay, that's not it. Maybe I should go buy a $500,000 car. Maybe that'll help me. And it doesn't get you there. Purpose is what gets you there, not money. Purpose is what gets you there, not listening to society about telling us how we should be. Nature will tell us how to be. It's equipped us with a body to operate in a way that is a biological imperative of nature, which for us is to continue. It's for us to continue. If we don't want to continue, then we're out of harmony with nature. Nature seeks one thing, that's reproduction. Now, it doesn't mean that we have to have children and all of that, but that's certainly a part of how do we to create continuity in nature through healthy ecosystems and internal harmony. It may be working with people to achieve that. I don't know what that looks like for people. For myself and my partner up the back, it's to have children and create a family. It's almost like that's the greatest act of rebellion these days. And to stand here as a man and say, I know what it takes to be a man. And this rattles people when, and respectfully to all the amazing women here, I get it. And the only time I get told how to be a man is by women. And I'm like, well, last time I checked the scorecards, I got 42 years on this planet being a man. I don't know how many years you've got being a man, but I think if we looked at the scoreboards, I'd probably be just a little bit ahead. And I say that with the utmost respect because I love women. I think femininity is beautiful. In my opinion, femininity is the prize as a man. Femininity is the prize. And I think it's an amazing process that we can run through in order to get there by breaking free from the tendrils of any form of mother constructs that are within so we can be born into true masculinity. The world will restore itself when this happens. I can promise you that. Society will restore itself. So the prisons around this, because I've only got 5 minutes left, there are 2 deep psychological prisons that we live in with this, which is I'm useless and I'm worthless. Actually, everyone close their eyes for a sec. And just take a breath in. And I want you just to say back, not out loud or anything, and feel into this in the body, what this is like. And say, I'm worthless. I'm worthless. I'm useless. I'm useless. And just sit with that and feel what that must be like, or what it is like. This is what our young boys that don't have the psychological defenses to manage that feel every single day. To me, that's heartbreaking. That a 10-year-old or 12-year-old or 14-year-old boy has had this projected onto him by strangers. And you think about that as an adult with everyone in here that has a powerful level of intelligence and awareness. There are some people crying in the crowd. Think about what an innocent 12, 13-year-old boy that hasn't had the maturity to move into that feels like that in that space. Can you blame them for wanting to kill themselves? I would want to if I was like that. So we have to bring awareness into this so we can help the next generation. We get better boys, we get better girls. Why wouldn't we want to help that? Why we're always at this deficit of trying to make people into something that they're not. And the only way that they're ever going to somehow fulfill a role is to boys to operate more like little girls, and for women's success and value in the world to somehow now be better than men or do what they do. It's not a healthy state we're in. We're sicker. We're weaker. We're more fragile. We're more physically unhealthy. We're more depressed. 300 million scripts for psychiatric drugs were written in the States last year. It's almost one for every person. How is this a healthy fucking society? Excuse the language. How is it a healthy? It's not. Krishnamurti said it the best. It's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And the only way that we've moved back into that is to learn to process this internally, move back into more traditional roles, not necessarily where the woman stays home, I don't mean that, but traditional, biological, imperative, in harmony with our psychological software. So the void that we feel here is disconnection. And this is what we're avoiding unconsciously, but ultimately, again, it is the absence of authenticity. The void requires fullness, and fullness is a byproduct of becoming indivisible, which means undivided internally. And that can only happen by allowing our true self to start to emerge and honoring what's right for us, instinctually, biologically, and psychologically and inherently, that we all have worth and we're all here for a reason. I'm going to leave that there. Thank you very much. If anyone wants to ask questions, I'll be down here. Yep.
No, hold
Yep,
on.
yep. Oh, we've got a microphone. Awesome.
Hi, my name is Derek. How are you?
Good, mate. Good to see you again.
Yeah, just a quick. I had a totally different experience of you. Like, since I was born, my father was a real masculine model. So he was aggressive. He was everything as a masculine person you can think. And then he was teaching me how to be that. And then, as you said, like against biology and instinct, we cannot fight for. So since I was born, I was gay. So he was fighting against it.
Yep.
And he was a real model. So when my father went to jail for the first time, I was about 6, 7. And you said like men are providers and also they are protective.
Yep.
Who did this to me was my grandmother. And my father ended up coming back of jail. And then when I was 14, he went to jail again. And then who was the provider and the protective was me. And then I learned it with my grandmother. So as I can see, don't you think all the aspect you're saying is masculinity is not like a human being aspect? And that's my question. It's not like a human being aspect, instead it should be masculine.
So are you saying masculine is not a human being?
No, I'm saying like in some traits, like some aspect that you say is just towards men, for example, as protective and provider. I've learned with my grandmother.
Sure,
So-
and she would have
and
had
then-
to pick that up as an adaptation to make sure that you're okay.
Yeah,
It's
but
not that they
this-
can't take it on. It's just that in some instances they will take it on, and that's okay.
Okay, but my question is like, don't you think like everything like is related to masculinity? Sometimes it's not like as a human being behavior, instead to be like us just for men's.
I think if we look at every single culture, and I'm still trying to find a culture where it doesn't have the male as the protector or provider, I would say it's more of a genetic byproduct, and that's what we're built for, where our muscles are thicker, bones are denser, our nervous system is denser. Even when women are transitioning to men, when they take testosterone, they're told that their emotions will be dulled out. And so we're built more for that. And in our society where there's not the existential threat of wild animals or predators all around, well, not physical predators for life, but there are certainly predators in a different way. What I mean by that is that men are built for it. We're built for protection and providing based on biological pursuit and existential threat. We don't really face that anymore, so now women can actually take up that role because there isn't actually necessarily the physical nature of that for them to have to slip into. However, if we look at it when there's harmony there from a perspective of a male provider with masculine psychological software, that male will usually start to thrive. But it was interesting because you said, my father adopted or had all the traits of masculinity, and the first thing you said is aggression. I actually don't think that aggression uncontained is very masculine, because usually it's driven by emotion, and then aggression is to hurt people around them. Aggression, I think, for a truly healthy masculine should be built in the form of competition against themselves in order to become better than who they were yesterday. So I'm all for competition and dominance as a male, but not over others against yourself and who you used to be to become better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Finish now?
Hi.
Okay.
Oh, I've got just a quick one. Thank you.
I've just been told I've got to finish up, but come down and I'll answer
all good.
for you. Thanks, man. Thank you, everyone.
Let's show some love. What a talk.